What's up, everybody, and happy fall. Welcome to the small carrier market update powered by Playbook. Obviously, I intend every single time we drop these is to provide you with actionable information as a small carrier that you can use to do your best to foresee what's happening in the marketplace. And listen, I get it. They sound repetitive at times. You hear the same information over and over again in regards to how the market's moving or how the market's not moving. But nevertheless, this is the tough stuff that you, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner within the industry, not only is this something that can help you make better decisions long term, but it also helps educate you about the space and what's happening evidently to you and how it's impacted. So I just wanted to reinforce that message. I know some of you tap in every single week and make sure that you're on these. This is really important as you learn and as you grow, because eventually the market changes. And when that market changes, you want to have the tools that are necessary that you can take to help flip you in the right direction. So I want to get right on into it. Let's start off by what we always start off by, which to us is how we determine how valuable a truck is to the market. The outbound tender rejection index indicates how valuable that truck is to the market. Right now, we're sitting at a 574. It's up just a little bit from last week. We're way below that 10% threshold that we would love to see, the double digit marks. Obviously, we're seeing 94% of that contract freight being accepted and only that 5.75% being rejected, really not showcasing that the market's changing much. However, we have had some signals in the last couple of days. As you all remember, last week with that immigration raid, it really shook up some of those lanes, and we had spot surges because of that. The thing that didn't change was the outbound tender rejection. So that was one of the things that said, hey, long term, this might not be telling us that something is happening. However, this is something that we want to continuously keep your eye on to it. So always, and this, if this is the first time that you've tapped into the small carrier market update, always understand that your OTRI, or your outbound tender rejection index, is a true indicator and barometer on how much value that your truck puts into the overall marketplace. The higher that number, the higher value your truck is seen upon, and ultimately the higher rates you're going to see. So it all goes hand in hand. Next is our volume. Man, these volumes continue to fall. We had a nice little rebound back in early mid September, got above 10,000, but we lost that again. I think a lot of that has to do with overall container volumes, which I'm going to show you here in a minute, but you know that's going to have something to do with it. We know that shippers and retailers are not really excited about putting any more freight out there, so we're starting to see freight drop. And when you start seeing freight drop, rates don't fall too far behind. So I wanted to make sure that we call that out. Now, as far as the National Truck Load Index, it just seems like this has been a broken record. I don't know if you heard it over and over again. It's sitting right at 235. It went up to 236 last week, which was partially because of that surge with the immigration activity that was taking place in the midpoint of the country. I mean, it's still higher than last summer, but we're close to where we were in January. So really not excited about that. When you have that where fuel is sitting at, then you know that it really just feels like it's just stagnant. So this is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that you and I both know, and we can all agree that we're a little tired, and we want to see that move up for the benefit of everybody. So hopefully we'll have some better news on our next market update, but today is a little different. Now, when we look at diesel fuel, it's still up there. It's still up there. It's still almost 30 cents higher than it was in June. It's 371 a gallon. It dropped slightly from 375, but it's high, man. Fuel is high. Fuel is extremely high. It's on the high end of the spectrum. We've been seeing it sit there for relatively 5 months now. Haven't seen anything driving diesel fuel down, and that's eating into your profits as well. So make sure that you're doing the things that you need to do from a station selection standpoint, and also from a consumption standpoint. Control what you can control, because 30 cents a gallon, it's a lot, man. That is a big difference. So be careful in those areas like the Northeast and California. You want to avoid those areas at all costs, and you want to make sure you're only fueling in those areas if you absolutely have to, if it's an emergency, if you need to get enough fuel to get out of those areas. I remember, back in the day when I would run California, and I look at a fuel gauge coming out of California, man, and if I got enough fuel to get me out of there, to get out of the state, then I'm just going to burn it all the way down until I get to the barrel of the tank, because ultimately I want to save as much money as possible. And there's a big difference when you come out of the state of California and coming out of the Northeast. There's a big difference in overall fuel price. And so if you've got to just put enough in a tank to get you out of those areas, that's exactly what you need to do. Now, as we look at the spot rate changes over the last 4 days, a couple of days ago, well, actually around Monday or Tuesday of last week, this whole map was blue. And I mean, it was blue. You had blue, you had deep blue. It really subsided. Now it's mixed. Things are softening off. You can tell that immigration surge, the immigration enforcement surge really made its mark, but then at the same time, it's pulled back. We're seeing a little bit more normalcy, but nevertheless, there's a lot of blue still on the chart. So I don't want to, be desensitive over it, but there's blue to blue. Make sure that you're running blue to blue. There's areas that, like you're looking at Virginia and you're looking at Louisiana, you're looking at the Kansas areas. If you're looking at those areas and you see there's blue, there's opportunity and there's increased spot rates over those particular areas. Make sure you're paying attention to that, because for example, the entire state of Texas is just about on the negative side, right? It's either neutral or it's pinkening over down to that red side. So you want to stay out of those areas because those areas are only outbound. Those areas have rate decreases and not increases. So use this chart, take a picture of this. This is an advantage for you. Go blue. That's where the money's at. Next, what I want to get into reefer tender rejections. They have fallen. They're still elevated. If you want to compare those to dry van, they are way higher than any dry van that's out there. But they're just not 16% like they were at the beginning of the month. So at the beginning of the month, they was only close to 17%. But now they've subsided a little bit. However, the one thing that I will say is that even though that we've had a slight decrease in the overall rejection, we have seen an increase in the overall rate in terms of truckload index. The truckload index right now is the highest it's been just about all year since February, right? Since like the beginning of February, 277, y'all. It's sitting at 277 a mile. So for my reaper haulers out there, that's solid. I know it's something that you really want to see. Also, you're heading into your Thanksgiving holidays. So seeing a rate like that sitting around there, especially in this marketplace, it's a positive. So I would want to definitely take that amongst anything else. So we have seen, and you remember, if you recall, since the beginning of August, we've been seeing reefer rates climb anyway. It was just till early October we saw a drop, and then all of a sudden they spiked right back up again and follow right back into the lead that they were going to. So it's not 290, but it's 277. I'll take that all day long. So if you're running and you're operating on that in that potential environment, or if you're operating in that environment, expect 277 as your average. Now, I did a little bit different. I did this chart a little differently this week.
The super successful people are part of the 1%. They're part of that very, very small percentage. That's why I don't want you to do things that everybody's doing. I want you to do the small things that nobody else is doing. The people that are most successful in this business treat it like it's the only thing that's bringing income into their household. If you do that, then you'll have the same results. The people that I see most successful in this business operate like they have no other chance. They have nothing else going. This is the only breadwinner that they have in play. I'm Adam Wingfield, and this is the FreightWaves Playbook.
The reason why I wanted to do this differently is because I wanted to make it hit home a little better. And the best way to kind of see small carrier count is from the owner-operator number. So typically between the 1 to 6 number, that's your owner-operator, that's your small fleets. That's what the majority of the country is comprised of in terms of actual authorities. Now, one thing that you will notice is on your chart here, you will notice that right now, as of this week, we have 181,577 carriers with 1 to 6 trucks. Okay. Now, that's the lowest number that we've seen all year. The one thing about that number, too, is that the 594 owner operators that the market has lost in a week. Right. So I wanted to do this more in an active carrier count. So that way you could see exactly what you're dealing with. Your competition is that 1 to 6 truck primarily. But look at that difference. And then look at the difference from last year. Owner operators are trending downwards for the last 12 months. As you know, I think that we can be obvious with the reasons why behind that. You got a lot of small fleets that are either parking their trucks, going back to company, or just doing something differently altogether. And we have not even hit that December mark yet. So I don't expect to see this change anything. This is where you can kind of look out and kind of benchmark where you're at. But this is the change that I wanted to do moving forward, is to showcase the active small carrier count, so that way you could see what that small carrier count looked like. Now, let's move on a little bit to the ocean side for my dray carriers out there. Not just my dray carriers. In order for you to understand freight and be truly in a well-educated space when it comes down to it, this drives some of your freight when it comes inbounds too. Look at this volume. This volume is terrible, okay? This volume is the lowest that we've seen since June. It's not getting any better. It's concerning because if you're hauling dray intermodal, this is your warning sign. Things are just starting to continuously fall off. I know that there's some tariff conversations that are supposedly taking in effect here pretty soon, especially with China. This is a indicator to you as far as a volume. It's been sliding for weeks. So the volume has been declining ever since August. The thing that I want you to be cautious of is that where it's going leading into the back end of the year. And then there's certain ports that are doing just the bare minimums. When you see the next couple of charts, you'll see what I mean. So here's your inbound volume. Okay, this is the volume of stuff, and I'm just going to call it stuff. This is a volume of stuff coming to your ports. Look at your week over week. Look at the decline in week over your major ports. You look at the Port of Long Beach. You look at the Port of Los Angeles. These ports are struggling to keep up with the actual decline in overall freight in comparison to what they've done year over year. So if you look at that week over week number, look at that month over month number, the only port that's positive month over month, year over year on this chart is the Port of Oakland, California. So here's the thing that really, really stands out is that the last week, when you got these double digit numbers, our cleared volume is something that you're going to want to also look at too. So this is what's telling you is going to move to truck in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So if we had a decrease of 11% of freight moving into the Port of Los Angeles this week, guess what? 3 to 4 weeks, that's going to be an 11% decrease in cleared volume to go to the truck. Does that make sense? So that's what I want to make sure that you be mindful of. As we get to the end of October, beginning of November, these port areas where they drive inbound freight, you can expect to see the decline. Now, here's the thing. There are some ports that are actually looking good when it comes down to cleared. So this is the freight that's already been cleared. That's like, here's more freight. Look at that Port of Seattle, 47% up week over week, 121% month over month. It is absolutely crushing it in the Port of Seattle. But then in the flip side, look at the Port of Los Angeles, down 40% this month, 35% for the year, 16% in a week. Look at the difference between those two ports. And then when you look at the Port of Newark, holding steady, 28% up week over week, month over month up 19%, year over year up 11%. So it just depends on where you're at as to what impact that you're going to see. So this is that port specific demand that impacts not only dray carriers in those ports, but as they transload, that becomes dry van freight and some reefer freight, obviously some flatbed freight, depending on how it's offloaded or depending on how they handle that. But this is freight that potentially hits that marketplace. So these are the things that I wanted you to be aware of and keep your mind forward going forward. So this week, obviously, we learned a few new little nuances in terms of the data that I wanted to showcase out there to you. But most importantly, I wanted to give you information that you could use and that can help you as you go forward. If you have any questions or if you want some more data or if you're looking for something different, drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Have a great week, everybody.